Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, which handsome boy with a sword is the most handsome? And why is it Mario? It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great. You know how we've been talking about those the Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals that are being broadcast like every Friday on YouTube?
I demand an update every time we record.
Okay, all right.
This is something that happens before we start rolling. I'm like, now, Mark, don't forget to talk about Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Well, I bring both good news and bad news. The bad news is that Sir Andy has exhausted his supply of film musicals, and we are not getting any more from him.
He's explicitly stated this now.
He has explicitly stated this. Yeah.
We
got Cats as the, grand finale, which makes a ton of sense to me. And then now they are just going to be broadcasting like other musicals. Like this week do you remember when NBC, I think it was NBC, did The Sound of Music live?
Oh, you bet I do.
Yeah, so that's what they're showing. So like, are we hitting the bottom of the barrel? I dread, but also look forward to what next week brings, which I'm sure we'll talk about on the show.
Well, yes. Again, I demand it. I demand that we talk about it every week. But it's weird because it doesn't even really feel like scraping the bottom of the barrel. It feels like giving up on exploring the bottom of the barrel and being like, let's just go with what's on the shelf, what's ready right now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
because it's walking into a sandwich store and being like, what's ready right now? And like, you can make a sandwich with whatever you want on it. It's like, or we've got tuna in the refrigerator. And it's like, okay, I'll have a tuna sandwich.
Well, and even it might be like, well, let us like just look in the back because we have a lot of great stuff back here that we just maybe haven't like really gotten out yet.
Yes.
And everybody's like, no. Let's just do that like version of, Sound of Music that NBC filmed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because that was 4 years ago. We can be nostalgic for it now.
And look, am I angry that we're not getting Starlight Express? Because do I
100%.
know even though I haven't seen it with my own eyes, I know in my heart that there is a filmed version of that Andrew Lloyd Webber is just sitting on and depriving us of. Yeah, I know that to be true. And is it maybe the German version that still like plays in Hamburg or Berlin or whatever it is? Like, yeah, it might be, but give us subtitles. We're not animals.
Now, Mark, I'm not going to make any promises about what NCS is going to do, but we have it within our ability to learn how to roller skate, learn all the songs from Starlight Express, and stage our own production. What do you say, quarantine NCS Starlight Express?
I am not opposed. I already know most of the songs.
Speaking of things that Mark is not opposed to, my copy of Sonic Forces. Would you like to borrow it? Someday, the program wherein you can borrow it is currently in a bit of a hiatus because I don't want to go to the post office. Someday, I will want to go to the post office. I will yearn to go to the post office. It will fulfill my every wish to just visit the post office, and I will send you my copy. All you got to do is email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com and give us a mailing address. I will send it to you. You can play it for as long as you want. Again, a little bit of a reminder, the game is currently on sale for $9.99 on the eShop if you just wanted to buy it. But if you don't want to buy it and you just want to borrow it from me, I understand. Mark, are you ready to get into our big topic for the day?
Yeah, let's do it.
Who is the ultimate Nintendo RPG hero? This is the topic we've landed on for today because, of course, there is a brand new Paper Mario game coming out in 2 months. I was going to say
And-
later this month. That's
well,
not
yeah,
true.
in 2 months, but later this month, next week, is Xenoblade Chronicles.
That's right. How dare I? How dare I forget? I even previously confessed to being excited about it. So, yeah, and Nintendo's got a. I don't think of Nintendo as an RPG company, right? Like, for the most part, I'm like, that's a Square Enix gig. And some of the games that we're going to talk about today are in fact Square Enix games as well. But like, it's amazing how many big and successful RPG series Nintendo has. Mark, what is your like experience with Nintendo RPGs, just like generally speaking, or
Yeah.
what do you expect of them?
Right, yeah. It's true that like Nintendo has some big like RPG franchises that like loom large in the psyche, like something like the Mother series or Earthbound.
Yeah.
Even though Earthbound is the only one of those that ever made it to the States in its like original like release window.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, like when I immediately think of Nintendo RPGs, it is the Paper Mario series for me.
Yeah.
Like I loved the first 2 games in that series, and like it encapsulates everything that I like about Nintendo and about RPGs. But really, like the list is crazy. Like Pokemon, Fire Emblem now is a huge part of like the Nintendo ecosystem. How about you?
Yeah, so it's I always want to be more into the Mario and Luigi series than I actually am. Super Mario RPG, well, I acknowledge it as being one of the most like simplified JRPGs out there. Has long been one of my favorites. And Fire Emblem is a series that I've been playing since Awakening, which is basically just like the the North American answer to like that's the entry point to the series for 90% of its audience right now. But yeah, it's the Paper Mario is one in particular that I feel like I don't have I'm not super close to. I never played Thousand Year Door, and I only played the original Paper Mario for the Nintendo 64 when it was on the Wii Virtual Console, while I was living in Hawaii, which is probably the most depressed I've ever been. It was living in Hawaii, and I played a lot of games on my Wii and a lot of retro games on my Wii. Because look, nothing will reveal your own sadness like going to the beach and being bored, right? So yeah, I played all the way through the game then and loved it, and it was very. It didn't feel like an old game when I played it in whatever year that would have been, like 2006 or whatever. Yeah, I have I have like a bottomless well of hope for every Super Mario game or Super Paper Mario game, and have not really had that fulfilled since the original. We've got some questions from listeners about our relationship to Paper Mario. Here's an email from Isla who writes, "Hey guys, thanks for working so hard to bring the listeners such warmth and laughter during these surreal times. I was completely surprised by the new Paper Mario announcement and am considering replaying a game from the franchise to get even more pumped before the release. Do you have a favorite game in the series? I think I have to give it to Thousand Year Door for the GameCube. They did such a great job of keeping the charm and humor of the original while showing us completely new ideas that we haven't seen before or since. A train murder mystery, a toad ghost that will give you a game over if you read his diary, a tough talking baby Yoshi with a mohawk. More, please." Yeah, Mark, do you have a favorite game in this series?
Yeah, I completely agree that it's Thousand Year Door. I have a ton of fond memories of the original Paper Mario. I remember, like getting it for the N64 and playing it with my little sister, and it was just so unexpected. This like idea of, like the whole aesthetic and the humor and everything, like it really blew
Hmm.
us away. Um, but Thousand Year Door, just like Isla said, like takes the mechanics and just kind of like blows out the world a little bit. I don't really remember. It's probably been 10 years since I last replayed Thousand Year Door, and I don't really remember the story, like the overarching story that well. But there
Yeah.
are like set pieces and characters that like stick so firmly in my mind for just being like so much fun. And I feel like for me that's like, again, like I said last on Tuesday's episode, I haven't played the 3DS Paper Mario, I haven't played Color Splash for the Wii U, but that's what was missing for Super Paper Mario from me. Like it didn't stick in my mind the same way.
Yeah, and that totally like tracks with my perception of them. Now I feel like I wish there was a way for me to play Thousand Year Door, but like there for real isn't, right? Like unless I had an original Wii and the disc for it.
Yeah, which is a bummer because it's such a it's such a good game.
We also got an email from Connor. Connor writes, "Wow, I did not expect the origami trailer to drop whatsoever. I'm so excited, surprised, and cautiously optimistic. I'm hopeful the battle system is engaging and fun, and that the game will most likely be a return to what made Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door so great. I feel like this is hands down the biggest news we've gotten since E3 last year. I'm more than hopeful that this all but confirms the legitimacy of the rumors of the 3D Super Mario remasters and whatnot." Connor also goes on to say that his internet is back and working again. So if you want to join him for his streams of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, you should go over to twitch.tv/ConnorZ69. That is twitch.tv. And Connor, I'm going to say it again so everyone has to hear it. Connor Z is cool 69. Um, so first of all, this is very exciting, and it does seem like it's the biggest news since E3 last year. I can't really think of anything else except for possibly the news of. I feel like Xenoblade's going to be big in a way that we're not quite ready for yet.
Yeah, I have. It's really hard for me to gauge. It's just like, how do you beat a Mario game? Like it's going
Yeah,
to be a
that's a great
juggernaut
point.
in a way that, like, it'd be great if it's like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 level successful. You know what I mean? Where it sells incredibly well with the caveat of like, for a Xenoblade game. Um,
Yeah,
but I
I
think
mean
I
it's
think you're right that it
yeah,
is 100% poised. Xenoblade Chronicles is 100% poised to be successful in a way that series has not before, because it's like a really well regarded entry in the series.
yeah.
And like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 sold well, so there's no reason that this one can't like perform even better.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be the sort of like reverse of most like video game things where like the first game in a series a bunch of people play, and by the time the second one rolls around, there's enough like word of mouth or goodwill that like everyone is buying into it. And I feel like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is in a lot of ways people's entry point for the series, and that is going to cause a lot of word of mouth, and then a lot of people will start with now the remaster of the first one and possibly even move into the sequel at some point, which is just a cool little like reversal of
Yeah.
a thing that happens all the time. All right, Mark, context out of the way. We are talking about heroes from these games. All of the Nintendo RPGs have a ton of characters in them, and what we've decided we're going to do today is we're going to select one character from each series to represent that series. And some of these, I think there are obvious answers, and there are some where I think we really need to like debate it out and really land on something that we both agree on. Um, should we start with Paper Mario or should we end with Paper Mario? What do you think?
Well, we can start with Paper Mario, but I think that before we do, we should two things. One, like,
Yes.
name the games that we're counting in this
Yes.
as like Nintendo RPGs. And two, before we do that, we have to explain to people that probably at this point years ago, we did an episode where we determined the best Nintendo RPG of all time. And I can tell you right now that if you revisit that episode, these lists are not going to match up.
No, that's right.
Things that in that episode we determined were RPGs do not make this list.
Right. I mean, for the most part, these RPGs are all turn-based.
Yeah.
Right. So the we're kind of exploring the classic like JRPG, very sort of like to the letter RPG. I believe we declared Breath of the Wild.
I didn't want to say it, Patrick. I didn't want to say it.
I'm afraid I had to, and I think Star Tropics was on the list. Like we went nuts. But okay, so should we run down all the series first?
Yeah,
I
think so. Let's give just an overview.
Okay, so the series that we are going to be discussing today are Paper Mario, Mario and Luigi, Super Mario RPG, which is a franchise but is only one game, Pokemon, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Earthbound / the Mother series, Fire Emblem, Golden Sun, Advance Wars, and Xenoblade Chronicles. Mark, where would you like to begin?
I know I said we could start with Paper Mario, but what if we go in reverse order and we start with Xenoblade?
I think that is that's great. I think that's a great idea. So the games in the mix here are the original Xenoblade Chronicles, which of course has been remade for the 3DS, and there is a remake coming out for the Switch next week. Xenoblade Chronicles X, which unfortunately has to be a little bit disqualified here because it is a game that features like a user-generated avatar to like run around the world. So toss it out. Forget it exists.
Exactly. We're not going to be like the Time Person of the Year when they declared us.
You get out of here.
What a joke that turned out to be.
Next up is of course Xenoblade Did I say who the protagonist of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 is? Did we say that already, or am I just going through the games right now?
We did not say it as far as I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just go through the games, I guess.
Sure. Look, hey, we're figuring it out as we go. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is the next one, and then of course Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna the Golden Country we're treating as a separate entry here. So from these 4 games, we are drawing 3 protagonists, one being Shulk, who has gained some notoriety as also he is a Smash Brothers character, Rex from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and Laura from Torna the Golden Country.
So you've played a little bit of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, right?
I sure have.
So I haven't played any of these games. So the character I'm most familiar with is Shulk from Super Smash Brothers.
I mean, I feel like this one is almost got to be Shulk by default, because he has presence in Smash Brothers, and because Xenoblade Chronicles, we are coming up on its 2nd remake in 10 years, which means it is obviously like held in, a special regard among the series, and obviously they're not going to re-release Torn of the Golden Country a year after it came out, but it is still like Shulk feels like the like when you picture Xenoblade Chronicles, you picture Shulk.
Yeah, I like his his sword. It reminds me of from like the Tron movies, the aesthetic of like the Tron like disc. If they ever make a third Tron movie and they introduce swords, which they will, then I think it would look like Shulk's sword. I do have to say though, in general, if we're going by purely aesthetics, I think Laura is probably the coolest looking one, and Rex is way down at the bottom. Rex from like the waist up, you're like, yeah, okay, like there's a lot of, like stuff going on, but that's fine. But then from the waist down, the proportions are like all off.
The thing that bothers me the most about Rex is the shorts with the boots with like the bell tops. I don't understand his pants situation.
Have you ever played like that party game like Exquisite Corpse where you fold a paper into three parts
Yes.
and you draw like somebody draws a head, then you pass the paper,
Mhm.
somebody draws a body. That is what Rex looks like. He looks like some like three different people. They were connecting the like body so it all flowed
Right,
together, but
right.
then they did their own thing.
I think that's probably what happened when they designed Rex. So, I also I like the note about Shulk's sword, because that to me feels like a very RPG thing.
Mm-hmm.
That like, well, one of like the title screen graphic for Xenoblade Chronicles is just that sword stuck like, in a stone or like in the earth, and that feels like a very Master Sword kind of thing. It feels like a very like, Cloud with his giant sword that takes up like his entire back. Like it, Shulk has that sort of like icon status. He shares it with the sword, but like together they totally achieve it.
I also like that Shulk is kind of dressed for winter a little bit. Like he looks to be wearing like a sweater with a coat over it, maybe a hood's going on. It's just like
Oh yeah.
different. It's just a different versus like the
Mhm.
tank top and like itty bitty shorts that RPG heroes are usually wearing.
And look, any hero puts on a hoodie and it's a shortcut to Mark's heart, right?
I find it relatable. There's a part of me in Shulk.
You feel like Shulk is role playing you. Okay, so I think we are in agreement. Representing the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise is going to be Shulk. Also, special shout out to Shirtless Shulk from Smash Brothers. There's a version of Shulk where he's not wearing a shirt, and it's not bad. Next up, Mark. What series we got?
We're talking about Advance Wars, another intelligent systems franchise that has sadly kind of fallen by the wayside. I don't think we've had an entry since like the DS Wii era.
Yeah, so this is one that sort of has the like dual curse of coming late to North America and then like disappearing forever. It's a little bit like Fire Emblem. When we get there, there's like a whole chunk of the series that we never got localized over here. But as recently as last year or two, yeah, just last year, we got Fire Emblem Three Houses, which was a huge deal. But Advance Wars, we haven't really seen anything since the 3DS or since the DS.
Yeah,
a long time. It's
yeah,
been a
since
while.
the DS.
Yeah.
And this, what is the name of like the indie game that is that kind of like, is it Tiny Metal?
Wargroove.
Wargroove.
Tiny Metal also sort of does it.
But yeah, like there was like trying to fill this niche. It's like a tactical like strategy RPG
Yeah.
type thing.
Again, very very similar to Fire Emblem in that regard, but where it sort of separates itself is that it is Fire Emblem is very like individual character, individual unit based, whereas Advance Wars, your units are sort of meant to be disposable. If you win at all in an Advance Wars match, it's considered a success, right? You lose half your units, but you win, you reach the objective. Great. If you do that in Fire Emblem, you've lost half your characters. They're gone forever, and they had names, sometimes kids. Like Advance Wars is a much. I don't want to say that it's like harder necessarily, but it demands you to lose more every time you play a match or a level, which I think makes their characters a little, I don't want to say like more generic necessarily, because there are a lot of generic Fire Emblem characters for sure, but like it changes like the sort of like tenor of character that you get in Advance Wars.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. So there's a number of entries in the Advance Wars series that we didn't get localized, and so like we're Japan only. But the ones that we did get here, Advance Wars 2, Black Hole Rising, Also my favorite Muse album, Advance Wars Dual Strike, and Advance Wars Days of Ruin. The latter
Which is my favorite Muse album.
um I think what's interesting when you have these characters laid out here. So, we have Andy from Advance Wars and Advance Wars 2, Jake from Advance Wars Dual Strike, which is the DS version, and then Will from Advance Wars Days of Ruin. And I don't know if this has anything to do with like the series demise necessarily, but what I think is interesting is kind of like seeing the evolution of these characters. And Andy from the Advance Wars and Advance Wars 2 is very like Ash from Pokemon, like a young boy, who's like just like has that like sense of like adventure and excitement. And then as the series goes on, it becomes more and more like realistic, and like Will from Days of Ruin like is toting a gun and he's all brown and camo. You know what I mean? Like the shift, the series begins to like shift in tone and tenor, and I wonder if like that ended up leading to the series demise a little bit, where you're like, I don't really know where we go from here.
So, are you familiar with the story of Advance Wars Days of Ruin?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So I was reading up on it today. And okay, so the plot of Days of Ruin is considerably darker than, and I'm of course reading from Wikipedia here, darker than and unrelated to the plots of previous games. Almost 90% of humanity has been killed off following devastating meteor strikes that have destroyed much of civilization and caused a massive dust cloud to blot out the sun, preventing photosynthesis and thus preventing the growing of crops. Scattered survivors pick through the wreckage and remnants of several military superpowers patrol the ravaged landscape, some factions protecting the innocent while others prey upon them. So this is basically Advance Wars of the Road. Like it is grim, and so I think it is almost irresponsible for us to consider Will the protagonist from Advance Wars Days of Ruin.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, maybe it is that like Ash sort of aesthetic that I mentioned earlier, but I'm all in on Andy. Like the picture that you grabbed for him, he's like wearing some dorky red jumpsuit, and he's got two big wrenches that he's holding over his head that it's like he can barely keep up.
Yeah, like he's a cartoon mechanic or something, which I guess he is. Like, just quite simply, it's what he is.
Jake looks cool. Jake is like he reminds me of like in the Rebel or Resistance base in Star Wars. There's those people standing at like the big glass map things, and they have like little headsets in, and they're always like wearing like vest jackets that have a lot of like pockets in them, and that's 100% who Jake is. He's like an extra in a Star Wars film,
which is hard to top, but I mean Andy's just iconic, right?
Yeah.
He's also like sort of the go-to for like representing the series in like Smash as far as like a trophy is concerned. So yeah, it's just kind of hard to argue with him. One thing I will say in Will's defense, which again, it would be irresponsible for us to consider him, is that he is wearing like sort of like a flight jacket and a t-shirt, but a tie. He's wearing a tie over a t-shirt.
Look, did Will do drama at my high school? Yeah, he did. And were we friends? Probably.
But Andy is going to represent Advance Wars. Also, you gotta love that synergy. Andy, Advanced, like it. That's all. Look, the first three entries in the series were Famicom Wars, Game Boy Wars, and Super Famicom Wars. This is when Nintendo was just like, I don't know, name it after the thing it's on.
I do like that it's like Famicom Wars. Basically, just like that, Wars is an entry in the franchises like golf or tennis. Wars.
Yeah, totally. All right, so we are selecting Andy to represent Advance Wars. Mark, we are now moving on to Golden Sun.
So this is really a franchise that I am only familiar with by reputation and knowing people who have played at least one of these games.
Yeah. So Golden Sun does not have a lot of entries in the series, right? We've got the sort of like two series, the first two entries, which both came out on Game Boy Advance, which were originally conceived as like a 3D RPG that would have been on the Nintendo 64. The two games sort of as one game, and then Golden Sun Dark Dawn for the DS, which is like a sequel to those two games.
And so these games, if I'm not mistaken, are developed by Camelot,
Correct.
who's like better known for a lot of like the entries in Mario Golf and Mario Tennis.
Yeah.
And then so I don't, man, this is like a half memory, so I'm even like apologize bringing it up. But I my memory is that like the last game that was released kind of left a cliffhanger. Like
Mhm.
it left stuff unresolved and literally unresolved because we've never had another entry in the Golden Sun series. And so like fans are still I think always hoping for like a new entry that would kind of like resolve the loose ends.
I mean, Golden Sun is one of those like elusive franchises. Actually, a lot like Advance Wars, where it's like, okay, great, thank you for giving me another Paper Mario. When are we going to start visiting the series that haven't gotten love in a long time? And I think a lot of that tracks back to the original Golden Sun. Um, the the second game in the series, which again plays an awful lot like the first one, sort of takes the perspective of the villains from the original. So like it's a little bit of like a yin and yang that you see one half of the story, and then you get sort of the antecedent phrase to that in Golden Sun: The Lost Age. And I think like that's such a novel, like wonky idea, especially as like Pokemon is releasing like two different flavors of the same game that are still basically the same game, just with like different specifics. And Golden Sun is like, no, like here's the same game, but totally like different story, different scenario, different characters, but the same, built on the same bones.
So we have three, I don't know, I guess like uh I'm feeling a little Goldilocks about this one. So from the original Golden Sun, you have Isaac, who is I think prototypical like JRPG hero. Um
Yeah, and really leaning into the sort of like medieval aesthetic of it. Like, if you were to tell me that that is a Dragon Quest character, just not drawn by,
Toriyama.
um, Akira Toriyama, I would believe you.
Yeah. And then the Felix from the Lost Age is like um I don't know, he feels kind of like his aesthetic is a little bit like uh Russell Crowe's Robin Hood. Um
Sure, just like a little too grimdark for your liking.
yeah, and I do like that like the lower cuffs of his pants. I think they're supposed to be like pockets or like zippers. But to me they kind of look like on like Nikes or whatever when in the heel they have like that bit of plastic in it that
Yes.
that's essentially it looks like his pants should light up when he walks basically.
Sure, like he's wearing the what are they called? Were they LA lights? Were those
Oh
shoes
yeah,
that
yeah,
had
yeah,
lights in
yeah.
them? Man, crazy things that we wanted our parents to buy us when we were young, but they would not. They refused. Um,
And so that's like a little bit
mhm.
too much for me. But then like Matthew from Dark Dawn, like clearly, especially the hair is right. Like it is Isaac from the original game. It's just
Yeah.
like he's just like like glowed up a little bit.
So Matthew is in fact Isaac's son. So that is, to give a little context, this is sort of Matthew is a like literal continuation of Isaac's storyline. He's got the hair for sure, and he's even got a little bit of like his father's like yellow cape, but it's now kind of more like a sash that hangs off his belt. I gotta say, I love his like stylish jacket, and like his pants seem to fit better. I It may be a controversial pick because Isaac is like Isaac is the obvious one, right?
Right.
Isaac is the trophy representation in Smash Brothers, but Matthew, I didn't even play this game, and I like Matthew more than I like Isaac.
Yeah, I'm down with it. I'm all in on Matthew.
Okay, Matthew will be representing Golden Sun. Mark, we now move into probably the most complicated one to navigate here, Fire Emblem.
There's so many potential options.
There are so many potential options, and a lot of them were not released in North America. So I think that means that we have to sort of rule out some of the most obvious like candidates here. For example, Marth. Marth is the first Fire Emblem character that many of us ever saw in Smash Brothers Melee. And he originates from the original Fire Emblem game that came out in Japan, and then also the Mystery Emblem, also out in Japan. But we didn't get him here until the DS remake of the original Fire Emblem, which is called Shadow Dragon. And Marth almost feels a little too like, well, being a mythological hero in the franchise forever feels a little too vanilla to me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I do think that you could argue we're giving him short shrift just because he is iconic. Same way like Isaac, we're just like, yeah, like it's a little too basic. But we have Shulk in there, so I don't feel like we're going too crazy. And for me personally, Marth was for sure my introduction to Fire Emblem in general, but like it's not the character that I have much of a connection to emotionally.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that is partially because of his iconic status, right? Like that he's almost too big to be a character. He is more like a figure in Fire Emblem.
Mm-hmm.
Which then, Mark, where do we even go from here?
Well, here are the games that we just kind of have like up for consideration, and they're the heroes that we're choosing to kind of represent those games. So for Fire Emblem Blazing Blade, you get Hector, Eliwood, and Lyn. The Sacred Stones brought us how would you say this? Erica?
Erica. I just say Erica. That extra I is in there just to mess you up.
Erica and Ephraim. Path of Radiance brought us Ike, and Radiant Dawn also stars Ike, which like another at this point iconic Fire Emblem character. Awakening, and here's where I'm like a character that I know mostly from Smash, but that I do like quite a lot is Robin.
Yep.
And then also Chrom and Lucina are from Awakening. Fates has Corrin. Echoes, Shadows of Valentia have Alm and Celica. And then Three Houses, of course, has Byleth. But then potentially you could talk about Edelgard, Dimitri, and Claude. A lot of heavy hitters in Three Houses purely by the momentum that game had by being on Switch.
Yeah, well, and it is interesting. Like in every other Fire Emblem game, they sort of like, and we've sort of done this too, is that we draw the line at protagonists are basically characters that the game won't let you progress if they're killed, right? Like if you lose any other units in any of these games, you're fine. You can continue on to the next one, and that character's just gone forever. But like if you're playing Radiant Dawn and Ike dies, like you're done. And Three Houses, obviously saves Byleth for no matter how you're playing the game, but both Edelgard, Dimitri, and Claude all sort of inhabit that same role of like your second in command depending on which path you're playing. And I think all three of those characters, I don't think Byleth should be it. Like I'd like to rule out Byleth. But I think Edelgard, Dimitri, and Claude are all great Fire Emblem characters, and maybe any of the three of them could be in the running for this.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also agree with you that about disqualifying Byleth. Like, obviously, I had so much fun playing Three Houses, but I think actually one thing that's awesome about Three Houses, but works to disqualify Byleth, is because Byleth is like purposefully a very blank slate, and you're really able to
Yeah.
project yourself onto, like, it's basically like you interacting with the characters, and Byleth doesn't get in the way because they're so like inoffensive
Yeah.
and almost like non-existent. And so while it's a virtue in the game, I think it does disqualify them from being like who we would want representing.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I feel like a lot of that same quality is present in Corrin in Fire Emblem Fates as well. Um Fates is another one that gives the player a lot of agency to choose, like, which of the two warring factions, like, you're going to, or which of the two, like, warring families you're going to choose to be loyal to, based in what version of the game you buy. And well, Corrin is like a dragon and has like a lot of like interesting stuff going on around them that way. uh it's another cipher, just like Byleth. So I think Byleth and Corrin should both be not in consideration here, but I feel like Robin may be the one that pulls ahead for me. So this is the protagonist from Fire Emblem Awakening. And it's another one where, like, you get to choose gender, and like, you're doing a little bit of role playing, but there's so much like going on around that character that, like, you get to really experience what they're about in a way that's not just like you making decisions.
And so how do Crom and Lucina fall in that? Are they kind of like the Edelgard Dimitri Claude of Awakening?
Yeah, a little bit. So, the big like conceit of Awakening is that there are characters who are the children of your playable characters who come back in time from the future, from like a ruined future. And so Lucina is the daughter of Crom, basically.
Gotcha.
And so both Crom being like your second or you're sort of his second in command. He's the king. And Lucina being his daughter from the future. That that's sort of how that kind of triforce of power works.
So I totally am biased, being that, the only game of this series that I've really played and like that I really loved was Three Houses. And so my pick would be from one of the three houses, like house heads of house, whatever.
Say house a couple more
Yeah,
times.
from that game. But I'm like totally willing to hear out if you feel strongly about one of the others.
So, and then, we're not discussing, just to make sure that we bring it all up, the characters from Fire Emblem Blazing Blade, which was just released here as Fire Emblem on the Game Boy Advance. Hector and Ella Wood, who are Roy's parents, and Lynn, who I don't know at all. Fire Emblem the Sacred Stones, Erica and Ephraim, and then Ike from the Radiance games, are all sort of where we don't know them really well enough. And like, maybe Ike is interesting just by virtue of his Smash presence. But let's stay in the realm of games that we've played and are actually passionate about. Um, if you had to choose one of the three house leaders, who do you think you would choose?
Well, I mean, it's hard because like I the only one that I've played all the way through is the Blue Lions, and so Dimitri's my boy.
Right. And I obviously played the Golden Deer, so Claude is my boy. But I think my suggestion here is Edelgard, because whether she is your hero, whether she's the protagonist or the antagonist, she has a huge role in the game, right? Like, Dimitri is present in the Golden Deer path, but not like a huge, he doesn't play a huge part in it. Just like Claude is present in the Blue Lions path, but he's less sort of like influential there.
Yeah, I it's hard to argue against that reasoning. I'm totally into it.
Okay, so this is probably our first controversial pick. Edelgard from Fire Emblem Three Houses is going to represent Fire Emblem as the hero. Next, Mark, we are moving on.
Oh, I was just gonna say we're talking about Earthbound or the Mother series,
Yeah.
however we want to frame this.
Yes. Another one that is possibly tough for us to discuss, because the only one that came around in like a timely fashion is, of course, Mother 2 / Earthbound, and that came out on the Super NES like 20 million years ago. So the other games in consideration here are the original Mother, which came to the Wii U, I believe.
I think it was the
as
Wii
Earthbound.
eShop.
Was it the Wii?
I think so.
Yeah, it was one of those eShops for sure. As Earthbound Beginnings, and Mother 3, which we've never seen, which was on the Game Boy Advance. So the characters from these games, from the original Mother / Earthbound Beginnings, is a character called Ninten, which fine, I'm rolling my eyes. From Mother 2 or Earthbound is Ness, which I suppose I should also roll my eyes again. And from Mother 3, Lucas.
Do you know what's
I
really...
won't roll my eyes.
Yeah. Do you know what's really funny is that I never made the Ness connection. I've lived my entire life blissfully unaware.
I feel like that's easy to do until you see that the first character was named Ninten.
To me, this one's not really a contest. I think it's got to be Ness.
I will agree with that 100%. Ness is also like carved out an identity for himself in the Smash Brothers games since the original, and like Lucas is like interesting. I like his design, but he feels derivative of Ness. And I'm sure Ness would probably feel derivative of Ninten if I had any association with them there, but I don't. So I think Ness is going to be the easy winner here.
All right. So next up, we're talking about Pokemon Mystery Dungeon.
Mark, I don't... okay, this is almost impossible because you are playing as yourself in the body of a Pokemon.
I know, like, I don't... I mean, here's what we cannot do is we cannot put ourselves on up for contention for best.
I think we have to. I think we have to. I think Pokemon Mystery Dungeon makes it explicit that you, Mark Mitchell, have become a Pokemon. So, like, if we're gonna do this, it's gonna be like Mark as a Slowpoke or something.
Okay. Well, we would have to bend the rules a little bit because we either have to do you and I as a collective entity, or we have to say each one of us individually. And I hate, I know we brought it up earlier that we're veering into Time Person of the Year being you, with like a little false foil mirror on the front of the cover. Territory here.
Which doesn't work. It doesn't work. All it does is reflect light. So you look at it and you're like, oh, I can't see the cover.
Exactly. It's like in like older video games when, you'd be in a bathroom and the mirror wouldn't actually reflect anything because it'd be like smudged, like you're in Silent Hill all the time or something.
Yeah.
Just reflecting on how worked up I am about the Time Person of the Year. I just don't know what to do here because like what we are saying is that potentially anyone who's ever played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon could be on this list.
Yeah, basically. Here are the games that are in contention here. So Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Red, or Pokemon Mystery, or Red Team, or Blue Team, or of course the re-release Rescue Team DX, Explorers of Time. Sorry, I said that twice. Explorers of Darkness, Explorers of Sky, Fire Adventure Team, Storm Adventure Team, Light Adventure Team, Gates of Infinity, and Super Mystery Dungeon. That was just word salad there, and I apologize for it. But those are the names of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. What do you think here, Mark? What do we do?
I don't know. I think I don't want to, but I think that we have logicked our way into a terrible, terrible corner from which we cannot escape. I think we have to put ourselves on this list.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we're doing a little self-insert here. So is it you or I, or you and I collectively?
I think it's you and I collectively.
Okay. So it's the Patrick Mark. And what Pokemon are we?
um
Man, it would be good if we could just do one of those like personality quizzes right now.
or even like the beginning of Rescue Team DX, right? You have to
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Let's see. Well, I feel like it is true in life that you are often what you most fear, in which case we are Sobble.
Well, but Sobble I don't think has ever been featured in one of these.
Well, darn
because
it,
he's too new.
Patrick.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't mean to throw a wrench in your works there.
Well, no. It's good. It's good. It'll which Pokemon embodies the two of us?
So can I read down the list of starters for Mystery Dungeon DX on the Switch?
Yes.
And we can maybe pick from there. So the choices here are Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle. So duh. Oops, that one is making noise. Pikachu, Meowth, Psyduck, Machop, Cubone, Eevee, Chikorita, Cyndaquil, Totodile, Trico, Torchic, Mudkip, and Skitty. So it's a lot of starters there.
Yeah, when I think when I did my when I played the demo that I ended up being Mudkip. I think that's right.
I think I was a Mudkip as well. Shoot. Does that mean we have to just be a Mudkip?
Yeah, I think so. It just feels right.
All right. So the hero representing Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is going to be Patrick and Mark as a Mudkip.
What a nightmare.
Godspeed, little Mudkip. Next up, of course, Pokemon. We got to figure out who the Pokemon hero that best represents Pokemon. And we are pulling from all of the games here. Red, Blue, Yellow, Silver, Gold, Crystal, Ruby, Sapphire, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Black and White 2, X and Y, Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Sword, and Shield, and whatever remakes and sequels I left out of that list. Mark, how do you like to go here? Do you think like Ash is the obvious answer here, or like Red, the protagonist from 1, or do we want to pick a Pokemon?
Yeah, it's interesting because like Ash is, I feel like, the most iconic, but also not from one of the games, right? Like Ash is just an invention of the anime series because Red and Blue don't really have a protagonist. Like any of the games don't really have like true protagonists. It is once again basically you in a avatar.
Right. So I think we should probably go with a starter from one of these. And now, just to remind everyone, we have done an episode where we picked the best Pokemon starter. This was before Sword and Shield came out, but I believe in the end we can't. What did we decide? There was the Froakie.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. I think it was Froakie.
Okay. So do we? First of all, I think that ruling is still good. I think Froakie is still an exceptional starter. But is there a different one that we would want to represent Pokemon?
I don't think so. I think we've just got to go with the best, right? That's what we want is the best from each one.
Yeah. Well, so at the time, I think we sort of disqualified Pikachu because he's not like a true starter, just like the Eevee isn't a true starter. But does Pikachu, like, let's put them up against each other and decide who makes more sense to represent Pokemon here, Froakie or Pikachu?
I totally understand your point where it's like, yeah, Pikachu is hands down the mascot of Pokemon.
Oh, okay, so is that saying that Pikachu wins, or
Oh yeah, sorry,
just that you allow
I
the
didn't have
matchup?
anything like. Look, I love like Froakie. I love Greninja. I love his big dumb tongue scarf. But yeah, when you're saying like who's the best like representative of Pokemon, I don't think it's really any contest.
Okay, so I agree with you there, Mark. I don't know how I could really argue against it. It's got to be the Pikachu. Now we are moving on to Super Mario RPG. Only one game in this franchise, arguably not a franchise. A Super Nintendo game developed by Squaresoft at the time, and sort of co-developed by Nintendo or overseen by Nintendo or something. I mean, the protagonist in this game is Mario. But boy does that feel boring, and B, I feel like we're gonna say Mario again before the episode is over.
So I feel like it comes down to Geno or Mallow. Like I feel like those are probably the two best to represent this particular game / franchise.
Yeah. So the other playable characters in the game besides Mario are Peach, Bowser, Geno, and Mallow. So Geno, Geno, whatever. I apologize. Old habits die hard. I'm gonna keep calling him Geno.
I have no idea which one it's really supposed to be.
Geno, Geno. Anyway, I feel like it's got to be Geno. Because he has a cool form in the game, right? He's this little like almost looks like a blue Link, right? But is like an animated doll that is like the spirit of the stars who like joins your party to fight the big bad of the game. Like he's basically on his own mission to fight the evil that Mario just sort of like incidentally seems to be battling. Like Mario just wants the Mushroom Kingdom to be okay, but Geno's been chasing this thing throughout the cosmos. I feel like he is the true protagonist of Super Mario RPG, even though you don't meet him until you've been playing the game for 12 hours.
So I concede every point you just had. But here's the thing about Geno / Geno is I just don't like his whole Pinocchio thing that's going on. And is this because I've just like never really liked the Pinocchio story and don't like sitting through the Disney movie? Yeah, kind of. But it really like
wow
makes it hard for me to enjoy this character. Mallow's just so chill and like you're just like finding it's a voyage of discovery with Mallow.
Okay, Voyage of Discovery, I'll sort of give you. He thinks he's a frog. Look at him. He's a tiny little cloud wearing pants.
He thinks he's a tadpole.
Yeah. Which is more ridiculous somehow.
Look, it's difficult for me again with just like Pikachu. It's tough for me to argue against Geno or Geno. The unfortunate thing about picking him is we will have to like qualify his name every time we do. But I think you're probably right.
No, but honestly, that may be a compelling enough point. I say we make Mallow our champion.
Yeah, I'm into it.
All right, Mallow is our champion representing Super Mario RPG. Now we are on to the Mario and Luigi series, encompassing the following games: Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, Mario and Luigi Partners in Time, Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, Mario and Luigi Dream Team, and Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. So all of these games star Mario and Luigi.
And I think that we have set a precedent by allowing you and I as a collective to represent a series. So to me, I think this is like Mario and Luigi team up. Like I think them as an entity together is what makes sense to advance from this series.
Yeah, one, it's also kind of like what else would you pick, right? Like Bowser is intermittently a playable character in Bowser's Inside Story. Partners in Time finds them teaming up with the baby versions of themselves. Paper Jam, they team up with Paper Mario. But all of those are like clearly co-starring roles at best. It's got to just be Mario and Luigi as a unit representing the series.
I think so.
Which brings us to the grand finale. Paper Mario. Games from the series that we will be considering include Paper Mario, Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, Super Paper Mario Sticker Star, Paper Mario Color Splash, and I wrote on here Paper Mario and the Origami King. But we can only assume that game is about Mario.
So for this one, we've one of the things that makes the first two games in the series really memorable is like the party members and like the companions you get in the game. And they stopped doing this really with Super Paper Mario on the Wii, and it hasn't come back. People are fingers crossed hoping that it is for the Origami King. But and there are really memorable, fun companions in the first game and especially the second game that like the first game has Goombarino, Cooper, Bombette, Parakarry, Lady Bo, Watt, Sushi, Laka Lester, and they're Goombas and Koopa Troopas and like Boos that have like a lot of personality.
They're classic Mario enemies, but with just like one tiny little twist that gives them like a personality. Bombette, for example, with the ETTE, I want to pronounce that second B so bad. Bombette, is pink and explodes and has a little bow in her not hair because she's a bomb. She doesn't have hair.
And I love the ones from Thousand Year Door, like Goombella is like a Goomba who is like an archaeologist. She's like a student, and so she wears like the little headlamp and everything. You have Koops, you have Madame Flurry, you have Mini Yoshi, who's like a punk baby Yoshi that you like meet outside of a club with a ton of attitude. Vivian, Admiral Bobbery, Ms. Mouse, who's the optional party member. So there's a lot of great party members here, but I am kind of I think it's just got to be Paper Mario.
I mean, I feel it that way too. I feel like there's really no way it can't be anyone besides just the Paper Mario. And, look, do we already have Mario on this list? Technically, yes. It's part of Mario and Luigi. But Paper Mario feels like a different character to me, right? It feels a little more open and playful and silly without sort of the kinetic running around. Paper Mario is a more thoughtful Mario, but a no less silly Mario, if that makes sense.
No, I completely agree. And I also think that for whatever reason in my mind, considering Mario and Luigi as a collective is a single entity, I don't know if in the end that's actually going to be to their benefit when we start comparing these people.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's great. So I think we are going to be choosing here Paper Mario. Mark, let us review the list, and I believe we'll have to save ranking for another day. Okay, so representing the Paper Mario franchise is, of course, Paper Mario himself. Representing the Mario and Luigi franchise is Mario and Luigi. These won't all be super obvious. Representing Super Mario RPG is Mallow. Representing Pokemon is Pikachu. Representing Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is Patrick and Mark as a Mudkip. Representing Earthbound is Ness. Representing Fire Emblem is Edelgard from Fire Emblem Three Houses. Representing Golden Sun is Matthew from Golden Sun Dark Dawn. Representing Advance Wars is Andy. Representing Xenoblade is Shulk. All right, Mark, let's close this out. That's what we picked. We picked those characters, and next week we are going to rank them. But hey, we might need your help in this. So if you would like to weigh in and tell us which of these characters is best, or is it worst, or is better than at least someone else, you should write into us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. Or tweet at us at NinCart Society and let us know. Also, if we totally blew it when we got something way wrong, let us know, those same channels, and we will talk about it next week and maybe fold it in. I don't know. We'll see. Also, did we leave out a Nintendo RPG series? I don't think we did. Mark, do you think we did?
I live in fear that we did.
Well, we'll never know because any of those emails sent to us I won't read. But it would be fun for y'all to get involved and tell us how you feel about the characters we just laid out. But in the meantime, we're going to close out the show. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If you like the episode, you can share it on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you share stuff. On Twitter, I am at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at NinCart Society. We also have a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8BitBetty. You can get more of his music by going to 8BitBetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.
Hey, it's Mia.
Hey, it's Allie.
And we host the Rom-Com Review podcast, P.S. I Love Rom-Com.
Each week, we'll have incredible guests come and discuss a new rom-com, grand gestures, meet-cutes, and of course, that elusive chemistry. Mia, what are you doing holding that giant boombox over your head?
I'm hoping to win over listeners with this grand gesture. Take us back!
Find a new episode every week.
And subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Brought to you by Campfire Media. Wow, you're still holding that boombox.
Yeah, I've got great upper body strength. Thanks, CrossFit.
Yes, I love rom-coms. I love rom-coms.
Campfire.